All right. Hello, everybody. Please, if you wouldn't mind, let me know that you're here. Say hello in the comment section. And please give a like. We have quite an interesting topic tonight. Sorry, I'm still a little new to all this, and frankly, it's all a little bewildering. I see there's 13 of you, and again, I would really appreciate it if you would put any questions you have in the comments section. I have been getting a lot of really good questions, and I appreciate them a lot, but it's much better for me if any questions come up that you just put them in the chat. That way I can see them. I know the chat is really cluttered. But tonight, we're going to talk about something that probably really does need to be talked about in this day and age, because meditation has been popular since the late 1960s, and there was quite a foundation of education that just people in general had in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So people understood a little bit better the types of meditation that are available. And that all sort of changed with the mindfulness movement, because the mindfulness movement imported its own agenda of wellness and feeling good. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Michelle. And hi, April. Thank you for being here. The mindfulness movement imported this agenda, and it did not match up with the agenda of traditional meditation, but it also didn't bring in its own methods or its own base of knowledge. It borrowed, or it just took, the classical understanding of meditation, and it used the classical methods and the classical terminology somewhat to saddle itself, or to connect itself to a different agenda. So meditation does make you feel good, I suppose. It does relax you. It does calm you down. But that's not the type of meditation that does much of anything for you. There's no transformative path if you're just meditating to feel good. Hello, John. Hello, Deborah. So once the mindfulness movement came into vogue, it seemed that meditation just could not be a simpler thing. You just tune into the breath. And you want to know how long you need to tune into the breath? I don't know, 10 minutes. If you don't have 10 minutes, though, 5 minutes. Again, this is another thing that has no real precedent. Meditation isn't something that anyone has ever done 10 minutes a day. I mean, honestly, what's the point of that? That would be like going to the gym and doing 1 rep. So we have now the challenge of re-educating ourselves about what meditation really is, how it works, and what types of meditation are the ones that we should be doing. Because there are so many types of meditation. The art itself is at least 2,500 years old. We have all kinds of documents. I'm going to show you some of them today, but just all kinds of texts that are, this is a great text on meditation. It's used every day all over the world. I think it's just it doesn't matter what I think. This is a masterwork. And I believe this was written, I think it was written in 1512. 1512, and it hasn't needed to be updated. There's certainly no correction to it. Nothing has become more modern or more skillful. I mean, meditation has been out of beta for 2,000 years. It's a perfected thing. It does what it does, and it does it very well. It's not exactly set up to help you achieve a happier, more relaxed life. It's not trying to give you a worse life or a more uptight life. It's trying to wake you up. Meditation is a way of clearing the obstacles to seeing reality accurately and then merging in that reality, which is called direct perception or nunsam, direct perception. It's similar to the word yoga. You bring yourself and you join with the vision of reality for as long as you can. So that might be 1 minute at a time, but that would probably be in the context of a 30-minute meditation session. You're getting there, getting there, getting there. Things start to calm down. It opens, you recognize it, and you stay. And then your mind kicks up again and you're out. Meditation is sort of a numbers game. You work first to identify that basis of reality, which has lots of names. Let's just call it Buddha nature. In the Finding Ground teachings, I don't call it Buddha nature exactly. I call it the ground of being. But we could also call it Buddha nature. You identify that Buddha nature and you establish a relationship to it. You bring yourself into it or it into you, or you merge. It becomes non-dual, however the language appeals to you. And the longer you spend in that experience, the more profound your meditation is. That's how you transform yourself in meditation. You simply arrive at the ground of being and you stay there for as long as you can. Ultimately, or maybe not ultimately, but down the road quite a ways, you learn to identify this ground of being, and then you learn to stabilize your experience of it, which in the Buddhist context is called samadhi. Samadhi is absorption in reality. And the longer you can spend absorbed in reality, the more real you become. When you get up from your meditation cushion, well, you have the suntan of reality and everybody can see it. Now, when we talk about absorption here, it's a little different from what might be popular in some of the Hindu traditions. The Hindu traditions sometimes use the word samadhi to refer to states of absorption where the world disappears and you're inaccessible. You are out of the office while you're in samadhi. But that isn't at all the case, not at all the case in Buddhist samadhi. In Buddhist samadhi, you can drive your car, you can do your taxes, if you're quite advanced, you can have a conversation. Great teachers, it is just assumed that they are living their life in that samadhi. It's become normal for them. They are living within the ground of being. So in the Finding Ground way of teaching, I talk about this as first we find or identify the ground of being. Then we recognize what it is, and we realize that ground of being is us. That's the genius within us. That's the part of us that's free, and that's called claiming. So first we identify or find, then we claim, and then we gain. And we gain through developing samadhi within it. And at some point, we have developed enough familiarity with our ground of being that we start living from it, and that's called standing. So we have finding, claiming, gaining, and standing. And those are just sort of modern, easy ways to talk about the approach to reality that a meditator engages through their practice. So something that just seems to happen to everyone these days is they decide they want to take up meditation, which is great. Maybe they want to take it up because they want to relax, which is great. But at some point, there are going to be people from within that group. So let's just take 1,000 people who start meditation. Maybe they're all sort of just doing mindfulness apps, or they're doing Sam Harris's app, or they're doing Calm, or any of those things. Sam Harris's app is a little bit more than that. And at some point, they think, I want more. I want to go on a real retreat. I want to really learn this stuff. I want to free myself from suffering and confusion. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into it even more. I'm not just going to listen to the app for 10 minutes a day, but I'm going to do the real thing, whatever that is. Well, hopefully they connect up to a teacher or a teaching community that's been kind of modernized, that knows how to teach someone like us. Because the real masters of meditation are not Western people. They're just not. It's going to take another 100 or 200 years before we have produced our own lineage of meditation masters. Now, we have a lot of great meditators, and there are quite a few good meditation teachers, perhaps even great meditation teachers on YouTube that are Western. But I promise you, none of them are going to tell you that the Western practitioners who've been doing it for 30 or 40 years are any match for their Tibetan or Nepalese teachers. Or I suppose if you're studying Theravada, I can't really speak to Theravada, Vipassana, insight, because that's not my path. But I would imagine that Western practitioners are still, they're catching up. And there are reasons for that we should go into in another live stream. But it has to do with worldview. We do not hold a worldview that allows us to just go into meditation. Our worldview gets in the way of our meditation from day one until we finally break through it, which is probably like 10 years down the road. The worldview has to be addressed, and the way that we address that is through study. We study. When we study, we begin to understand our own worldview, and we start to understand that this worldview that we've been walking around with, honestly, it wasn't put in place by our incredible intelligence and our survey of all knowledge. We didn't arrive at a worldview as some masterpiece of investigation. We just inherited it. We just watched a lot of TV, and now we have the worldview of Happy Days and the Brady Bunch and Dukes of Hazzard, if you're my generation, or for those kids among you, I don't know what. I think that you were mostly exposed to things that I don't know much about, but it wasn't the worldview that's going to wake you up. It's not the worldview of enlightenment. And so we have to undo that worldview, or at least we have to get a sense of it and then put it over to the side. And then we begin to adopt a worldview that is in alignment with the methods and intention of meditation practice. And like I said, it takes time. So what often happens is that someone decides they want to get into it a little bit better. And so they might get online and try and figure out who are the great teachers, who is it that they should study with. And let's just take an example of, someone could possibly study with, the Dalai Lama or one of his people, but that's not probably realistic. Pakchak Rinpoche. Pakchak Rinpoche, who runs the Samye Institute, is a bona fide meditation master of the Tibetan tradition. No question about it. He's all over YouTube. Pakchak, P-H-A-C-K, P-H-A-K-C-H-O-C-K, Pakchak Rinpoche. Fantastic teacher. But I have an idea that if you were just to decide, I think I'm going to go study with Pakchak Rinpoche, you're not going to be learning the type of meditation that was on your apps. You're going to be learning something that absolutely bewilders you, and it could even scare you, because it has to do with engaging in visualization practice of things that you've never heard of before, and it doesn't seem like this is the peaceful, simple meditation path that you've probably read about. So tonight, we're going to talk about visualization practice. Here, let me just show you the question. And Nick, if you're here, I want to thank you for your question. It's a great question. So let's see. I arranged all these slides. I had some fancy stuff that I was going to do just for fun, and I couldn't link it up. I couldn't get it. I was so frustrated an hour ago because I'd spent all this time making it special for us, and I couldn't get it linked into YouTube. So I'm just going to have to do these ugly screenshots. So here's the question, and I'll read it out loud. Jeffrey, he asks, could you explain the role of deities in Buddhism? I'm thinking here of the various Buddhas, the Yidams, the Dakas and Dakinis, and past enlightened practitioners that are invoked in various practices like refuge and visualization practice. Are these literal beings that exist, or are they intended figuratively or as practice tools? Or are they cultural expressions of the Dharma that we're able to take or leave? And then he observes, because he's studied some finding ground, finding ground doesn't really seem to incorporate these. So I'm curious on your take. And that would be my take he's asking about. And bonus points for addressing how to understand reincarnated lamas, particularly supplication to them. Well, that's fun. I mean, you're right, Nick. This deserves explanation. And one of the things that you don't often get is explanation. It's so different from anything we're expecting, and it looks like worship. I mean, it looks like you're somehow worshiping a god, because you're definitely going through motions of visualizing a Buddha either in front of you or as your own self. You're visualizing yourself as a Buddha, and then you're generating other Buddhas around that Buddha that are then praising that Buddha, offering flowers and incense and food and things like that. And then you absorb them back into yourself, and then you recite the mantra associated with that deity, that Buddha. So if it's like the most famous of these is Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, you might visualize yourself as Avalokiteshvara with 4 arms or 1,000 arms or however many arms, because there's all kinds of variations. And after going through all of the praise and the different things, sending light out in all directions and gathering it back, you then stabilize that visualization and you repeat inwardly, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and you do that, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, whatever. And that is just pretty weird. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, isn't that, how are you going to tell your friends about what you're doing if you're doing that? I mean, they all better be doing the same thing, because honestly, this is not stuff that, I didn't grow up doing this. I grew up watching television and listening to Led Zeppelin, and there was nothing like that. But actually, as we'll see, we have been doing something like that our entire life. So maybe I'll just start out by just from the hip. We have been visualizing a deity our entire life and saying its mantra and praising it. The deity that we've been visualizing is what we think we look like. So if it's me, it's handsome, muscular, smooth talking. And the mantra would be my name, or just the word me. I mean, how many times do you say me each day? You're accumulating mantras. Mantras are like the identity. Now, in a system like Mahamudra or Finding Ground or Zen, you are learning how to relax all of your mental ideas and land in the fundamental ground that is more basic than those things. That fundamental ground doesn't have a body. It doesn't have a name. And then out of that ground, a self appears. And that self is confused. That's the idea of me. This is why non-self is such an important milestone of insight in all the meditation traditions. But it's a very beginning insight. It's important, it's easy, and it's also basic. what you're doing there is you're observing how the feeling of self and the kind of mental visualization of me, like how I visualize myself as long flowing hair and muscles and all that stuff. Maybe that's not how you visualize me, but it's my visualization of me that changes the way that I act, right? Oh, whoops. Was I not synced? So that visualization that I carry around of myself, particularly if it's like the one that I just said, isn't very accurate. You know, if I go around thinking that I look just like Elvis Presley and I act like Elvis Presley, I think that I'm pulling it off. Other people don't. And this is the experience we have in our life. We have an idea of who we are. Now, the visualization is one component, but the deeper layer is that we think that really is us, and we have a name for it. Me, self, I am this. I like pasta. I am sleepy. Who are we talking about? We're talking about a visualized entity, or an entity, a being, we could even say a deity, that we are holding to as if it is us. And we're going through our life with that. But when we begin to discover the ground of being, we are experiencing a more fundamental layer of what we actually are. And we know that this is more accurately what we are. No one has to come in and tell us, that's your ground of being. That's a more accurate version of what you are. We can tell. We know it. We have a sense of recognition. From that, we can see the feeling of self, the feeling of Jeffrey, or the feeling of April, or the feeling of Deborah coming up. And we realize that is just a persistent, mistaken idea that we've been carrying through our life. Well, once we get to the point, and this is kind of important, once we get to the point of seeing how our everyday self is just an illusion, kind of an embarrassing one, but certainly an inaccurate one, we have a few choices. We can simply stabilize ourselves in that ground of being without going along with the idea of self as it appears. We don't try to get rid of it. We just don't go with it. It's like a car pulls up and the door opens and it says, get in. And we just feel like, I'm not getting in. I've been down that road before. I know where it goes. Thank you, but no thank you. And then it goes off and comes right back. Door opens and it repeats the same process. And still, we don't get in. When we do get in, that's the end of that meditation session. So there is a very powerful meditation path which does just exactly what we're talking about, and that I keep talking about it, is Mahamudra. Mahamudra is a path of just establishing the ground of being and stabilizing within it until that dream, until that confused habit of thinking of self begins to break apart. And the stages of this are what I think I showed you this before, the 4 yogas of Mahamudra. The first yoga of Mahamudra is the direct perception of the ground of being. And we yoga ourselves into it. We stay there. We stay there until that car no longer comes in within any kind of proximity to us. It might still, but it's half a mile away and the door opens and we're not, no, thanks guys, nice try. And eventually it just goes away. That's just the first stage of Mahamudra. I know that whenever I talk about this stuff, people ask for books. And I keep holding this book up because I have 2 copies of this. It's always easy to find. And it says Mahamudra right there. So it's a great prop. But this is a tough read. I mean, this is really, really dense. I think a better starting point is this. Mind at Ease by Tralek Kyabgon Rinpoche. Self-liberation through Mahamudra meditation. This guy was a master. He's no longer with us, but it's an excellent book, Mind at Ease. So these are meditation practices that come primarily from the Tibetan tradition that do not involve visualization. But you go and study with someone like I said, Pakchak Rinpoche. I mean, he also teaches Mahamudra, he teaches Dzogchen, all these things, but I shouldn't be picking on him. Definitely don't mean to be picking on him. Just trying to come up with someone who you might have seen. They're going to give you visualization practices. Visualization practices. So what is that like? Well, let's take a look here. Here is the shortest little visualization practice that I have. Let's see if I can make this happen. This is a visualization practice. It's extremely short. This whole thing, you can read through this from beginning to end in, 20 minutes. But what you're essentially doing is you're going through a liturgy that involves booting up visualizations and doing certain things and then reabsorbing those visualizations and then resting and then going into the next chapter and booting up a different visualization. Whoops. I'll get this one day. I know I will. And then the whole thing culminates in you visualizing yourself as this guy. This is Padmasambhava, the fundamental Buddha or the great Buddha of the Vajrayana tradition. You might think, wait, is that different than the Buddha, Shakyamuni, Siddhartha Gautama? Yeah, he is different. He's another Buddha, but it's okay. They're all part of the same band. So Padmasambhava is who the Tibetans think of first when they think of the Buddha. They're very well aware of the historical Buddha, but the practices of visualization, the practices of what are called Vajrayana that they all do in Tibet and Bhutan and parts of India and Nepal, those are all visualization practices, and they come from people like Padmasambhava, who think he's like the 8th century. So what is visualization? Why in the world would I visualize myself as this? Well, the reason is that this also arises from the ground of being, just like my ordinary I look like Elvis Presley visualization. My name is Jeffrey, and I refer to myself as me. Well, when I'm visualizing myself as him, if I were doing that, this is very different than how I visualized myself since I was a child, so it takes effort. I am gathering my attention, my mindfulness around a different visualization than I'm used to. And this begins to snap the chain of habit. Now I am taking shape. I could just be in the ground of being. But what I'm doing here is I'm resting in the ground of being and then allowing a different me to show up. And that me has special qualities. Now, it's always hard to share the screen, but if you look at Padmasambhava here, you see that he has all these things. He's holding an implement here, which is called a vajra. He has this stick here called a kadvanga. He's got this really fancy hat that has 5 jewels on it. He has a skull cup that has a vase with life-giving nectar in it, and you're visualizing this, and you are learning, because you're going to do this for years and years and years, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours spent visualizing one of these. And there are thousands of these visualizations you could do. Usually a teacher says, I think you should do this one, and then they give you the practice, and you end up visualizing yourself in that way. You are paying attention to what am I holding in my right hand as the visualized object? What is in my left hand? What kind of ornaments am I wearing? All of these things are symbols of the teachings of Dharma. So for example, if I hold in my right hand a fountain pen, well, the fountain pen signifies writing and communication, poetry, that kind of thing. But if I'm holding in my right hand what he is holding, which is, I don't have one here, it's in the other room. But if I were holding a Vajra, which is a meditation implement, holding the Vajra symbolizes that I am stabilized within my ground of being and I'm not letting go. And I understand that the ground of being is fundamental to anything that could arise out of it. In other words, the most powerful thing that we can hold with our mind is reality. So Padmasambhava in this iconography is holding reality. And he's holding reality in such a way that all non-reality backs away. He's also adorned with a crown, which symbolizes the qualities of wisdom that come out of the ground of being. He has various ornaments, which also symbolize compassion, for example, patience, generosity. So there's a lot of collected symbolism that a meditator holds in their mind. So during the first year or two of doing a visualization practice, you might be doing a scan. Like, okay, today I'm going to really focus on holding reality in the form of a Vajra. Good, good, good. Next week, maybe it's this Khatvanga, which is another principle. That's the stick that he's holding. All of these things have their own meaning. And the meaning is kind of like, it condenses all the stuff that you've studied. So in a session of visualization practice, you're bringing all the knowledge that you ever studied through books like these and all the teachings that you've ever been given by your teachers. All of that is collected into symbol. You're not having to think about it. It's rich with association. Now, it's not rich with association if you don't know what any of it means. Then you're just visualizing this thing. But if you do know what it means because you're well prepared, all of the knowledge of the Dharma tradition is condensed into a symbol, and you are holding it in your mind. It's amazing, really. It's an amazing thing to do. Now, let me check the question here. All right. Could you explain the role of deities in Buddhism? So, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. They're deities, gods, deities. The Tibetan word is yidam, which means it's a meditation object that kind of protects your mind. What does it protect your mind from? Well, if I'm visualizing myself as a Buddha, I'm protecting myself from making the error of visualizing myself as someone who looks like Elvis Presley or someone who is just an ordinary person. Because the Buddhist teachings tell us you are not an ordinary person. You have mistaken yourself to be an ordinary person. That car pulled up and the door opened and you just got in early on in your life, and you would never get out of that. You would be terrified of getting out of that car. But when you go down into the ground of being, you find yourself relaxed, and at one point you realize, oh my God, I got out of the car. Why did I get out of the car? I don't know what I feel good. So the ground of being gives you a fresh start, and you can either just stay in the ground of being, develop samadhi in the ground of being. That's a completely perfect path for most of us. Or you can begin to do the things that these traditions of visualization do. While you're still in your ground of being, give rise to a visualization that is more accurate of your own qualities. Because I'll tell you, when I visualize myself just as me, I'm not visualizing a generous and patient person. I mean, I try to be generous, I try to be patient, but I'm not very generous and I'm not very patient. My mind wanders. I get impatient. I'm getting impatient right now, can't you tell? Well, he doesn't. So when I'm visualizing myself as him, I'm visualizing someone who's definitely at ease. Now, it takes work. It's not like I can just pop into being at ease like it's some magical thing that happens. I have to work at it. But I am associating myself with a being that means at ease and wise and free and generous. And so visualization practice can assist us in that way, but it isn't necessary. It's not a necessary part of meditation. It's an option. It's definitely an option for those who have a lot of time, because visualization practice is not something to do casually. Let me just keep going with the question. Are these literal beings that exist, or are they intended figuratively or as practice tools? They are practice tools, so there's a yes on that. Are they intended figuratively? At the beginning, they are intended figuratively. There is a stage of the training in visualization practice where we are simply booting up the best we can do of a visualization. We're doing our best. It's coming and going. Maybe we have the hand there, but there's nothing in the hand, and we realize, oh God, my hand is empty. Okay, put the Vajra in there. Okay, there it is. We're just getting used to it. That's going to take us a year or two. Maybe it doesn't take that long for some people. For me, and I should talk about this a little bit, like, why would anybody do this? But I'll get to that in a second. When we are in the stage of learning the visualization, what we're essentially doing is we're training ourselves not to leave the ground of being, which is clarity, of being, which is, and freedom, relaxation, free from the mind. The mind is able to move, the mind is able to express, but we are not in that mind anymore. Normally, we are, because the car of the mind pulls up, the door opens, and we get in it, and now we are in the mind. Meditation teaches us not to be in the mind. Just relax beyond the mind. Being in the mind is like having a Charlie horse, but if you've only ever had a Charlie horse your entire life, you think having a Charlie horse is normal. Well, being in the mind is far from, it might be normal, it might be what most people do, but it's not healthy. And it's not the way. It's certainly not the best thing we could do. So we're learning how to hold a visualization while not departing from the ground of being. And that's not easy. We're trying to rest in our Buddha nature, in our ground of being, and we're giving shape to an enlightened self. And that enlightened self will have a name that we begin to put into it, which is the mantra of that being. So this is Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava's mantra is Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum. You probably all know that, or some of you know that. And that essentially, Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum. What does that mean? It means Padmasambhava. That's what it means. It's like me saying Jeffrey. Only Padmasambhava has a lot going on. So when I say my name as Padmasambhava, or as anyone who's doing this practice would articulate that mantra, within that mantra, within the syllables, there are meanings, and mantras don't usually, or they don't always have direct translations. They are powerful syllables arising from the ground of being pre-thought. So they have meaning, but they don't have meaning that's intelligible to the thinking mind. This isn't that unusual to us. If I make a scream in pain, you know what's happened to me. I don't have to go, pain, pain. Or I don't, if I'm laughing, I just laugh, and you know what I must be feeling. I don't have to go laughing, laughing, right? So if I'm holding a visualization of a completely enlightened person and I'm saying their mantra, I'm taking the shape of an enlightened being, of a Buddha, and true, or Om Ahum Bensa Guru, that's true. I'm taking the shape of an enlightened being, and I'm articulating my self-identity as enlightenment, which is, by the way, it would be an unconfused self-identity. And I know that gets really confusing, because wait a minute, self-identity? What does that mean? I thought we didn't have a self. Well, it's all deep. And yes, those things are true at one level, but at a deeper level, while there isn't a self in in the form that we are always thinking of. There is an entityness. Wisdom manifests, and it can talk to you. So, or you can, I'm going to leave it at that. So are these literal beings? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. At first, no, they're not literal beings. They are generated visualizations, and you are under no illusions. You don't think that, oh, now I've become this Buddha, and I really am this Buddha, and people better start listening to me. That would be bad practice. No, you understand that you're just visualizing something. But what you're visualizing is something that can receive the expression directly from the ground of being. So it's almost like a balloon that's inflating out of the ground of being, but is still connected to it. And all of the air within the ground of being is within the visualization is ground of being air. That's not the case with our just ordinary self. That's a mind-created thing. There's very little accuracy there. It's just a lot of detritus. It's just a lot of, karmic flatulence, if you will. So when our visualization is stable and we begin to really hold the view of the ground of being while we're visualizing, it comes alive. That's what they say. So the visualized representation is called the Samaya Sattva. It's the visualization that we hammer into place over a few years. But at some point, the meaning of it shines through, and it does become real in a sense. Real. It's much realer than our everyday self is. But it isn't real in the sense that nothing in a Buddhist tradition would be real. Everything is emptiness and luminosity joined. So a visualized deity is more real than a confused apparition of the mind named Jeffrey, but it isn't any more real than it isn't ultimately real and solid. It is empty and luminous. So I hope that may have done something. Are these cultural expressions of the Dharma that we're able to take or leave? Basically, yes. You can take them or leave them. You don't have to do these practices. And I will just now in this live stream say that if you haven't begun doing visualization practice, don't. It's way too difficult. It's not the thing to do. You don't live in Nepal where your grandparents and great-grandparents were all masterful meditators who would spend months at a time in retreat stabilizing these visualizations. If you live in that type of environment, then you're probably beginning to do these things by the time you're 10 or 11. When you're starting to do these things in midlife, or even when you're like, I started doing these things in my late 20s, and I'll tell you why. Because I just said, don't do them. And now I'm telling you that I've been doing them for a very, very long time. My God, this was the hardest thing I've ever done. I could not believe that they were expecting me to do this. I just wanted to do this. I just started to think, oh God, I wish I could just meditate and just Mahamudra. Well, the problem is, the way that you enter into visualization practice is you request it from a teacher. You say to them, I would like to begin to do this practice of Padmasambhava that I've heard you talk about. Do you think I'm ready to start doing that? And they might look at you and go, well, if you really want to, if you have the time. And then you say, yeah, I really want to. I think I have the time. I mean, I have like 10 minutes. And they'll say, oh, that's not going to do it. Do you have maybe 90 minutes? And then now you start to think, oh, well, God, that really sounds like something. Yeah, I have 90 minutes, sir. Yes. So then you go through what's called an empowerment. You are not able to do any of these things. You can't just pick up a book and start visualizing. I mean, of course, you could do that, but that's preposterous. You have to go through the empowerment where the tradition kind of gives you, invests in you the power of this practice. So it's called Wang, Lung, and Tri. You're empowered, then you're given the transmission of the sadhana, and sadhanas are how you practice visualization. I know that for a lot of people think that they're just going to visualize something filled with light, and it sounds so wonderful. This is the first real sadhana that I was given. It's this is like 110 pages long, and usually when I do it, I just do a very small amount of it. And a full practice of this sadhana, which involves a lot of saying things and visualizing and then resting in meditation for 10 minutes and then booting up another series of visualizations and then doing the whole mantra thing, all the while exhausting myself with visualization. We're talking a full session is probably 2 hours. 3 hours would be even better. And a super condensed version, which frankly is what I usually do, is about an hour, maybe 90 minutes. It's taken me 20 years to learn this thing. Well, why do I do it? Because when you request this, you enter into what's called a word of honor. Always. A word of honor. The scary Tibetan term for that is samaya. But you agree that you will do this practice. You will do it either until you become enlightened or until the teacher themselves say, okay, enough of that. I want you to now maybe do this, or just relax, rest in Mahamudra, or until you die. And I have not attained enlightenment yet. And my teacher keeps saying, oh, that's good. You have that. Good. Great. Keep doing that. So I got to keep doing it. Now, luckily for me, my words of honor didn't involve me doing it every single day. Sometimes I do it every single day, but I could take a month off if I wanted. I could take a year off if I wanted. But the idea is I said I was going to do it. And the person who gave me this practice, which was Tranggu Rinpoche, Kenshin Tranggu Rinpoche, is one of the great masters, just a wonderful human being. I said that I would do it. I want to make good on such an important thing that I said I would do. Does everybody do that? Well, no. Some people, they just sort of like, oh, yeah, I stopped practicing a while ago. But, it's just not how I am. I don't know. I take this stuff seriously. And what that means is I know now not to ask for more teachings. And when students ask me if they should go and do these things, almost every time I say, no, don't do those things. It is hard. You have to go through all kinds of stuff to do this stuff. And it's not easy. Well, I just said it's hard, so I'm repeating myself. After time, 10 years, you sort of kick in and you start getting it. And that, for me, I had to go into these lengthy retreats up in the mountains, no running water, just a cabin. I don't know how many retreats I did. I used to go on like 3-week retreats and 5-week retreats. And I would do those every year, sometimes twice a year. And yeah, amen to that. I'm telling you. And all I was doing, I'd wake up early in the morning, I'd make tea, and then I'd open up the sadhana and I would begin. And it's a bunch of chanting. And anyone who knows me knows that I don't really enjoy chanting. I know a lot of people do, and that's fine. I just don't. I don't want to chant. I want to rest in the ground of being. But I asked for these teachings, and I got them. And I kept asking for more teachings, too. And so now I have 4 volumes like this. Now, my teachers hold the view that any one sadhana, so I'm saying I have 4 of these, maybe 5 now, any one of them is the same as any other. They're different things. It's just sort of like, if say you love the Beatles and you want to play a Beatles song, well, you could play Help, you could play Yellow Submarine, you could play A Day in the Life. It's all the Beatles, right? It qualifies. What did you listen to? Oh, that's the Beatles. Well, these are all Buddha visualizations that arise out of the ground of being. So it's not like one of them is more powerful or more enlightened than the other. They're just variations on a theme. It's just you might find that you do one or two of these practices and they're sort of like, God, it's a lot of work. I don't really know that I'm digging this. But then you get another one. Maybe you get a Manjushri practice or a Vajrasattva practice. And right from the get-go, you feel like, oh my God, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Well, that's the best case scenario. In that case, it's good to have 3 or 4. If you're going to do any, you might as well get a few of them, as long as you don't have to do every single one of them every single day, because some people do. I know people who have to get up early in the morning and at least chant through the liturgies of all of the sadhanas, the visualization practices they've done. That can take an hour and a half just to do that at breakneck speed, without any mantra, without any meditation. You're just reading. Why would you do that? Why? Because you said you would. And you hold your words. You take your words seriously. So it's that kind of thing. Come on, Siri, I don't need you right now. So my advice is, if you haven't started, don't mess around. And if you're just doing a little visualization on your own, like you've never actually received it from someone, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I can tell you that virtually every meditation tradition is going to tell you, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not how it's done. You're going to create complications for yourself. If you're going to get involved with visualization practice, you do it the right way. You find a teacher who's a legitimate holder of that tradition, and you request the Wang, Lung, and Tri, which is the empowerment, which sometimes takes a couple of days. You're going through all of these rituals, learning how to visualize. The master is speaking the mantra to you, and you're doing it. It's all kind of cool. You can go on YouTube and just type in empowerment, Dalai Lama or something, and sort of see what this is all about. And you probably won't want to do it because it's very, very complicated. It's colorful, takes all day. Usually your knees hurt. Usually it's in Tibetan, so you have no idea what they're saying, but it still counts, I guess. And why would anyone do this? Why would anyone do this? Well, if you're Tibetan, you're going to do it because people who do it end up looking like this. This is the Karmapa, the head of the Kagyu lineage. He's no longer alive. He died in 1981. He's the one who transmitted this to the West. This particular sadhana was transmitted by his lineage. So he came over and he taught it to a number of people in the 70s and 80s. It's a very big deal. And then you have to go through the commentaries. These are the commentaries for this. Sorry about that. For this. This is not 10 minutes a day of just sort of relaxing and getting ready for work. This is like, good Lord, I'm not going to be able to do anything anymore. But, the people who do this stuff are very, very impressive people. They definitely can inspire you. You meet someone who's a master of these visualized practices, and you have to remember that your friend Jeffrey said, I know they're very impressive, but don't ask for those teachings. It's going to consume all of your free time. Instead, ask for this. Ask for the basic resting in the ground of being practice. They achieve the same thing. One of them, this is called the path of liberation. Resting in the ground of being, resting in Buddha nature, you attain liberation just by doing this. These sadhanas are called the path of method. You're using advanced methods to accelerate the journey. So that makes it sound like it's going to go faster. But, faster to these guys means it's going to take you 5 lifetimes rather than 30,000 lifetimes. But Mahamudra, Dzogchen, things like that, are traditions of just resting in the ground of being that can deliver the same result in 1 lifetime. So, and I know that most of us, 1 lifetime, we don't believe in that stuff, do we? Well, most of us don't. But the more you meditate, the more you really rest in the ground of being, the more you are going to feel like everything you believed about the world before was just like put together by a bunch of kids. Your whole worldview, your whole materialistic worldview, mom and dad and all that stuff, everyone has always been telling you how things are. And you can see, God, they don't know how things are because they could never explain what you were experiencing just in 20 seconds of resting in the ground of being. You realize that that worldview is kind of just put together and passed on through the generations, but not very accurate. And the ground of being is irrefutable. So let's see what we have here. I guess that's it. I guess that's it for that stuff. But let me tackle some of these things. And please, if I didn't answer the questions I was supposed to, or if there are questions that you want answered, put them in the comments and I'll see if I can get to them. Finding ground doesn't really seem to incorporate them, at least not that I've heard. So I'm curious on your take. Finding ground does not teach visualization practice or mantra. First of all, I'm not empowered. I'm not authorized to teach visual. I mean, okay, hold it here. I would not be the sort of person you would go to learn these types of teachings. I don't have the authorization. I don't hold the lineage of any sadhana where I can give an empowerment and give the reading transmission and then give the commentary. That takes a person that's been trained specifically for that task, usually since they were very young. So who would that be? Well, this guy, Traleg Rinpoche. He was empowered to do all these things. He's dead now, so you can't go to him. And then the Karmapa, I mean, if you could get your empowerment from anyone, it would probably be from someone like this. He was considered by many of his contemporaries to be the most enlightened person of the 20th century. Was it true? I don't know, but this guy was seriously the stuff. There are people like Ponlop Rinpoche, Sokni Rinpoche, Choki Nyima Rinpoche, Khandro Rinpoche, Pakchak Rinpoche, Mingyur Rinpoche, all these people, Zongzar Khyentse Rinpoche, they all teach this stuff. Those are the people that you go to and get those empowerments. Now, in my earlier career, it was my job. Once someone had those empowerments, I would walk them through the practice. I would help them learn how to do it. It was fun. It was, but it's a pretty small group of people, right? Because not too many people are going to go through all the rigmarole to get the empowerments to do these types of things. And I enjoyed doing it. It certainly helped my own practice. But that is not what we should be doing. I mean, I'm not saying that's not for us, most of us. If you're someone who's really set up to do these visualization practices, probably everybody in your life knows it because all you're doing is studying the Dharma. You're spending every spare moment either flying to Nepal or going to some retreat and studying with a Tibetan master, and you're practicing 2 hours a day, easy. Then sure, why not? I mean, you're already doing it. Now keep in mind, if you do visualization practice, you're almost certainly going to have to go into solitary retreat at some point. Now, some people really want to go into solitary retreat. I love to go into solitary retreat. But if that's a new one for you, like, what? Can't I just do this at home on the edge of my bed for 15 minutes? No, you can't. You also can't become the world tango champion. You also can't you can't beat Magnus Carlsen in chess, although one guy just did. You can't do that stuff. You have to be the sort of person who's prepared and ready. But why would that matter if you can attain the same result through just resting in the ground of being? And even resting in the ground of being is something you have to learn to do. If you decide, I do want to meditate, not just to relax, not just to be more mindful, but I actually want to free myself from confusion, realize selflessness, and give expression to the wisdom within me, great. You need to discover and identify your ground of being, your Buddha nature. That takes a little bit of time. I'd say someone is very serious about doing this, and they're starting from scratch. It might take a year. Might take a year of you meditating every day and coming to classes and doing some retreats. You can definitely fit it into your life, but you're not just going to snap into the ground of being and start meditating with that. It's just, it takes a little bit more than that. We've spent 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of our life confused, not even knowing that we had a ground of being, certainly not recognizing it. We're not just going to undo that in a week. It's a process. Now, when you have good meditation methods that teach you how to relax and free fall into the ground of being, you can definitely cut through it quickly. You can glimpse it easily, soon. 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month after beginning, you can glimpse it. But glimpsing it isn't the same thing. You want to glimpse it, and then you want to return. You want to glimpse it 20 times during a 30-minute meditation session. I was listening to one of my favorite teachers, actually on YouTube a little while ago. His name is Eric Pema Kunsang, and he's a Western translator. You can find him on YouTube. And he said, you should be flashing into the ground of being at least 500 times a day. And I sort of looked around, make sure nobody was looking at me. That's the kind of serious commitment that someone who wants to wake up is going to have. But relaxing into the ground of being, it doesn't take a whole lot once you know how to do it. And then you just stay there for as long as it remains. 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Then your mind kicks up. There's attachment again. And then you're back in your me story. But then you remember, I'm in my me story. And you relax into your ground of being again. You do that again and again. That's how the path progresses. You're familiarizing yourself with the true nature at the heart of what you are. Now, once you're good at that, you might think, I think it'd be really cool to generate a visualized Buddha out of this. Well, maybe so. Maybe you should go and request these things and just set aside time in your life to do them. They're rewarding. They certainly work on your mind. They definitely make you, they upgrade you in ways. They certainly give you a very articulate mind that's able to think about reality. Now, reality isn't something that you primarily think about. You be in it. But can you think about reality accurately? Not without training. Not without training. But with training, you can speak ordinary words and articulate reality. That's what a Dharma teacher is trying to do. That's what they've been trained to do. And that's what you can do by practicing. My recommendation is recognize your ground of being and learn to rest in it. And make those glimpses last a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And then at some point, do a retreat. Could be a weekend where you're just resting in the ground of being, 10 seconds at a time, putting boundaries in. Like maybe I'm going to do it for 30 minutes, then I'm going to have some coffee, then I'll do it for 30 minutes, then I'll have breakfast, 30 minutes, then I'll have a snack, 30 minutes, then I'll exercise, then it's lunchtime, and then I'll repeat the same thing in the afternoon. That's a retreat. And all you need to be doing is dropping into the ground of being and familiarizing yourself with it. You don't need to do any visualizations. Now, the worst thing you could do is to fake visualizations. If you haven't really received it properly, just don't. Just don't. You just add confusion to the mix. But I don't think any of you would be doing that. We have a mature crowd here, I think. So, okay, bonus points. I always like bonus points for addressing how to understand reincarnated lamas, particularly supplication to them. Oh my God. Yeah, this is almost another live stream on its own. I'm going to try and do this quickly. So when someone is, let's just say when someone is enlightened, what we're referring to there is that they dropped into their ground of being, popped out of it, dropped into it again, popped out of it into their thinking mind, dropped into it again, and then like 5 million times later or more, they finally dropped in and they never came back. They are completely in their ground of being at all times. This is real. There are people like that. All the teachers that I just mentioned, I mean, I can't confirm. You can't give them a blood test of to figure out, but you could tell. I mean, you can, when you've been doing this for a while and you're around a very experienced or realized practitioner, you can tell. They vibe it. Their mind is not active. They dropped their mind a long time ago. They're just there like a lion, like an animal, but an enlightened animal, an enlightened lion. When someone does that, they can learn, and most of those people do, they're trained to do this, they begin to generate a type of power that it's almost like they're tapping their own ground of being and putting it in little cups all around them, all around the world, little cups. And then they give you ways of finding those cups. And you can then take the power of their ground of being and drink it down and then experience your own ground of being. You're not experiencing their ground of being. They're just helping you through the power of their being real. You can use that as like a leverage point to recognize your own reality. So nothing comes from them to you exactly, but you can tune in to a person who's fully embodied in the ground of being. And so this isn't about reincarnated lamas, but this is about supplication. The methods that, like this right here, this is the Tibetan of Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum. That's the supplication to Padmasambhava, this guy, this Buddha. And, I know that it's probably unlikely that any of us believe this stuff. It doesn't matter. That supplication, that mantra, Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum, is a way of supplicating the power that Padmasambhava generated to pay it forward, to give others an opportunity. This is the notion of adhisthana or jinlap. So adhisthana is the Sanskrit word, jinlap is a Tibetan word, or wangtong, the field of power that an enlightened person has. What we're doing is we want blessing. I don't love the word, but it's the word we've got. We are supplicating using a mantra and forming the aspiration that I want to be enlightened just like you. I just want to be enlightened like you. And then we supplicate, Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum, Om Ahum Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hum. And we stoke the fire of really wanting to wake up within us. And then it's said that like a bond forms. And that's called, a good translation, it's called jinlap or blessings. And a good translation, I remember, I think Dan Brown, who's a teacher and a translator, translates that as gift waves of influence. So these are waves that are coming from an enlightened being that are gifts to those who know how to gather them. And then they influence you. I can just say that, whenever I have a chance to talk to my teachers and ask them meditation questions, there is so obviously a powerful connection going on there. They're giving me their best attention. They're really listening to me, and they're really sort of scanning me and vibing so they can help. And you just feel like you're definitely getting something from someone who knows what they're talking about, and they're not going to deceive you. And it's just this kind of relationship where someone is powerful when you are not yet powerful, and you're asking them to help you become powerful. And they're not going to give you their power. They can't. But they're going to try to help you understand the power within yourself so that you can emerge that way. Where's the power come from? I bet you know. Your ground of being. So now reincarnated lamas, I don't know if we should even get into that. This is a whole thing. I mean, if you're resting in your ground of being long enough and really observing the way your mind works, you start to become a little more like, I don't know, maybe it's true that maybe all the stuff that's been happening to me in my life wasn't set in motion by me in this life. Maybe I am just like the trees that are growing outside in my yard are somehow connected to other trees that grew somewhere around the area. And they're all sort of connected to the elements that have been here for a long time. Maybe human beings are kind of somehow arising from past causes also. And certainly that's the way that the Dharma tradition will talk about this. And reincarnated lamas are those who have dissolved into their ground of being completely and then re-emerged in their life as, they're beings without a self. They're just the ground of being in the body that they were born with. Part of their life, they were not awakened or not enlightened, and then they practiced, and then, whoa, it really happened, and they were still there. They hadn't died yet. But now the mind within that being is an enlightened mind. And that enlightened mind is able to generate tremendous intention. Intention, just like I can have intention, tomorrow I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to do it. I'm going to wake up early. Now I'm forming intention. And then tomorrow, when the alarm goes off, I might connect up. I said, I'm going to get up early, so I'm going to do it. And then I get up early. My previous intention showed up the next day, and it empowered me to keep going. Well, these lamas form from this completely clear, wise state of being a powerful intention to, when they die, to come back in another body and to, as soon as possible, reconnect with their previous stream of enlightenment, which means practicing their butts off early in their life. Like this guy, 16th Karmapa. This is someone who, there are so many stories. Look at the size of this book. This is just a book about the 16th Karmapa. You don't have books like this if someone isn't special in some way. Of course, we also have books like that about John Lennon and Jimi Hendrix, but they were special too, just not in the same way. The Karmapa, when he was young, was kind of difficult to deal with. He was kind of just like a tough Eastern Tibetan nomad kid who was hard to tell what to do, and he was recognized as being the incarnation of the 15th Karmapa. So the person who died, this is the 16th guy who sits on this throne and wears this cool hat. There was a 15th and a 14th and a 13th. It goes all the way back to like the 9th century. And there are ways of finding them as children when they're reborn. Now, I know that we don't believe all this. It don't have to. It's still interesting, right? We can at least take an anthropological interest in it. They put them through all kinds of tests, though. Like they'll show up. Maybe you've seen the movie, what was it, Kundun, where that's the story of the Dalai Lama. There's this child, and some enlightened yogi is having a vision that, whoa, the Dalai Lama has been reborn. The Dalai Lama who died last year has been reborn. He's in a little valley, 3 days walk through this range here, and I think he lives in a yak hair tent, and there's a 3-legged dog, and the mother's name is Chodak, and the father's name is Gyurme, and he will recognize you if you come and you bring this cup, which belonged to the previous Dalai Lama. Well, they'll do that stuff, and they'll go and they'll show. First of all, they find a kid. It's like, oh my God, there is a 3-legged dog in a yak hair tent, and the mother's name and the father's name. Whoa, okay, kid, here's 3 cups. Any of these cups mean anything? And sometimes the kid is just like, gaga. And they're like, I don't think this worked. And they just head back to headquarters. But at other times, like for the Karmapa and certainly for this Dalai Lama, they recognize right away, they'll grab that cup. And many, many other things beside that. Like if you really want to learn about this stuff, I'll just say, it totally makes sense why anyone would be skeptical about this stuff. But if you're going to take it seriously and you want to learn about why some really smart modern people just are like, no, this is true, start learning about it. Start reading about what happens with these children. Start learning about what begins to show up in their minds when they're 14 or 15. There's too much there for most people to just discount. So you end up in this state of, God, I really don't know what I think about it. like at my stage of the game, I mean, what do I know? I mean, these are amazing people who are completely free from all the stuff that I suffer from. Their minds don't go up and down. There's this radiant knowingness, and I've known some of my teachers for 20 years. So something's going on there. But anyway, the Karmapa wasn't really showing signs of being as enlightened as his previous Karmapas had been. And some of the lamas were like, I'm not sure this guy, I don't really know if this guy is it. He just seems kind of like a privileged snot, frankly. I mean, everybody's treating him like he's special, and he's certainly acting like he's special, but I don't really see anything. Well, that changed. At a certain point in his life, he went into practice. He went into retreat for a long, long time and practiced his butt off. And he came out blazing. And people, like I said, I mean, some of the most revered lamas of Tibet said that he had the deepest enlightenment of anyone in the world in the 20th century. And he's one of my heroes. But I'm all in. I believe all this stuff, I guess. I don't go along with everything, but I'm amazed by it. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining this live stream, the second Finding Ground live stream. Right now, we're in the process of a 2-week Finding Ground Summer Academy. And I thought, am I going to have time to do this live stream? But then I got this question, and I thought, well, that'd challenge me. I should talk about this, because I don't talk about any of this stuff in the Finding Ground teaching, because that's not what it's about. But this is important, and it's interesting. So I thought I would just go ahead and push myself a little bit and do the live stream. And we're going to do another one next week. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I don't know how to tell you to get them to me. Just put a comment in any of my YouTube videos. I'll see it. It could be the first one from December. It could be any of the ones. If you put a comment, I get a little thing that says, so-and-so asked a question. And I'll just include that. I'll put them in the live stream queue. And so if there's a question that you would like to hear my take on, I'd be happy to give it some time. Everybody, I wish you the very, very best. Thank you for tuning in. It's always a delight to talk about the Dharma. So, good night. See you next week.